Hey, and happy Thursday!
Hi, everybody. Today we thought we'd bring you a devotional from Suzanne's book, I Don't Want Them to Go to Hell. We've had some issues with this book. A few people have told us that the title turns them off about the book, but the book is really written for your friends and your family or people in churches that are afraid, which is a real fear, that their loved ones or their friends are going to go to hell because they're gay, which we know they're not. So Suzanne wrote this book to specifically address those people and to have something for you to give or share with them or for them to read to give them encouragement. So would you like to start a devotional for today?
So I'll just say a little more and then would you read the scripture for us again? So the first two books, Where True Love Is and Transfigured, they were really written for LGBTQI plus people. And so the message is unabashedly affirming and speaking directly to people who are, have those experiences, and perhaps to their allies. So it seemed clear that there was a piece missing, however, that there are a lot of books, if you kind of Google books for families or loved ones of people who come out, there's a lot of books from a conservative Christian perspective. But there didn't seem to be much for families that are leaning towards more affirmation of their loved ones. So it seemed like this was needed, and I really like the devotional format, so I kept going with that, where it's little chunks of information over a period of time to help people just enter into what God might want to say to them over time. So, just expanding a little on how this thing came to be. And, the title, I don't know if you guys are seeing the text backwards. It looks like it, from what we're seeing. I hope not. But
I think so.
If you're looking for it, it's the one with a person who looks sad on the cover. But the title, I wanted it to hit that target audience directly. That's the fear that they're balancing. So, they really are afraid that people are going to go to hell that they love. So that's where the title came from. So if you've thought or if you've wondered if this book is not actually affirming, it is. It's just a little bit more subtly veiled to help walk the people who are afraid gently into the next step of acceptance. So, all right, let's hit it.
All right, well, let's start with the passage today comes from Mark 3. Then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived. Standing outside, they sent someone in to call him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they told him, "Your mother and brothers are outside looking for you." "Who are my mother and my brothers?" he asked. Then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother."
Mary must have been pretty freaked out by this point. Her beloved son was traveling the countryside, violating laws, angering the religious experts, and hanging out with people society found undesirable. Put yourself in her shoes. She watched her son doing all sorts of things which she thought put him in danger. She arrived at this time to try to protect her son, but he rejects her attempts at protection. She probably assumed she knew what was best for Jesus. After all, she was his mother. She probably had thoughts like, "Can you please just not be so flamboyant?" hoping he could hide who he was for even just a little bit longer so he'd be safe. But we don't see her complaining in response to Jesus' words. She supported him despite being scared about what might happen. One reason is that she knew who he was down inside, just like you know the son, daughter, sibling, or friend who's come out as gay or gender non-binary. Obviously, your LGBTQ loved one is not Jesus. None of us are. But we can still learn from Mary's response. She didn't try to stop him from living fully into who God the Father created him to be. She may not have understood it all, but she didn't have to. All she had to do was love Jesus and support him in the ways that she could. That's all you have to do as well. It may be impossible for you to understand how your loved one feels or the decisions they make about how to live their life. But you don't have to. All you have to do is extend your love to them. God will cover the rest, and it's quite possible that it will be more beautiful than you could ever have imagined, just as it was for Mary. So I thought this was appropriate. I mean, hopefully it conveyed, but just to elaborate a little, here Mary is, and here parents and loved ones of gay or non-binary folks, their fear and wishing they could just keep it under wraps. Why do you have to come out of the closet? Why do you have to why do you have to kiss in public? Why do you have to put yourself in the eyes of someone who could harm you, and dealing with that fear? That's a part of people's negative responses. They worry about what's going to happen to their loved ones because the road isn't always easy. So I loved that image, and I often think about how LGBTQ folk end up being like Emmanuel, God with us, to the people around us. Jesus came in a form that the people didn't expect. They didn't expect Jesus to be a human baby. They didn't expect him to be vulnerable to death. They didn't expect him to be sort of teaching against what the typical or religious authorities were teaching. So he came as a surprise, as a way to show people who God is. And so we, all of us, LGBTQ folk, can play that same role for the people in our lives. We show up with God within us and shine love and light in a way that is unexpected. And people are challenged, just as they were by Jesus, to examine who God is in a new way. So there's a couple reasons that I think that this passage makes sense and is helpful for parents and friends and family, because they are facing this new examination of what God means and who God is. So, yeah, did you have any thoughts on?
Well, we've been down this road, so we understand the feelings. Both of our mothers were very confused. It didn't seem like my mother was going to come to our wedding, and she showed up at the last minute, and we wept. My mother has said things like, well, I don't understand it, but they sure do seem to love each other. So the love shines through. And sometimes people don't accept. Often they do, from what we're seeing, and they might not understand, but they can begin to just accept that that's something they don't understand, but they're going to love you anyway, which is where I think our mothers are.
Yeah.
And we pray that happens for all of you, and any of you in pain from that today. We lift you, and we know where you are, and it gets better.
It often gets better. We hear stories regularly about people telling us of their heartache at the rejection and the pain from parents, from brothers, sisters, from children, when we hear that there's been a reconciliation, it's so heartwarming, and it does happen. It does get better. And if you need something to help your loved ones maybe be able to approach it, that book can help. Message us and we can tell you more about it. Or sometimes we send books anonymously to family members. So we can do that.
You've even sent letters before.
Yeah, I've written letters to a number of family members, that mentions their name, but it's sort of an anonymous, and asking them to pray that the Spirit would reveal truth to them as they struggle. So that's all we can do, is ask God to reveal truth to us through all of our struggles, and please, Lord, answer that prayer. We hope you're all doing well, staying safe, finding joy in the spring, and celebrating Pride Month. You take good care, and God bless you.
Happy Pride.
See ya.
See ya.